So a developer gives an AI agent a crypto wallet, right? They type a single command, and they just sit back and watch the software negotiate a price and fire off a Lightning Network payment.
Yeah, and it looks incredible on your feed.
It really does. I mean, it looks like the birth of this fully autonomous machine economy right there on the screen. But it's actually an illusion. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our mission is to unpack this massive gap in tech right now.
Right, the chasm between giving an AI a wallet and actually building a functional, trustworthy system for it to operate in.
Exactly. We're looking at a fascinating internal script and brief today. It's titled Agent Economies Need Authority Before Money.
Which is a great title.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're looking at that alongside a stack of raw data that was scraped from Hacker News back in mid-July 2026. Because handing an AI a wallet and watching it move money, it really doesn't prove it's a participant in an economy. I mean, it's exactly like handing a toddler a corporate credit card.
Yes. I love that analogy. You take that toddler to a candy store, right? They swipe the plastic, and the payment rail functions perfectly.
Sure.
The bank processes the transaction, the money moves across the ledger. The infrastructure did exactly what it was programmed to do.
But the toddler has no idea what just happened.
Exactly. A successful transaction does absolutely nothing to prove the toddler understands a corporate expense policy, know, or that they have a defined budget, or even know how to file an itemized receipt.
Right.
A payment rail is just the plumbing. So we're dealing with this core thesis from the internal brief today, which is before an agent gets a financial balance, it needs a strictly defined scope.
Right.
And before it gets a larger scope, it needs mathematically sound evidence of its actual actions.
So we are definitely cutting through the hype of those viral demos today. But, before we get into the actual mechanics of authority, we have to lay out the parameters of the data we're using to ground this conversation.
Very important, yeah.
Because the sources we have from mid-July 2026, they are heavily constrained. During the specific data collection window for this deep dive, public searches for Reddit were just returning continuous 403 errors.
Yeah, locked out.
Totally. And X, or Twitter, was completely unavailable to the scrape as well.
Right, so the signal we are analyzing today is restricted entirely to Hacker News.
Just Hacker News.
Just Hacker News. And the rule here is we do not invent product claims and we don't manufacture momentum from thin data.
Right.
Having a bounded data set like this actually forces us to be highly precise about what developers are actually building right now, rather than, pretending we have this sweeping view of global consumer adoption.
And honestly, that constraint makes the leads we did pull from Hacker News so much more interesting, because they all point to the infrastructure surrounding the agents rather than the core AI models themselves.
Exactly.
Like, take this project called Trace. It pitches itself as a Stripe radar for autonomous AI agents, and it claims to reduce Sybil fraud by 86%.
Which is huge.
Right. And for anyone listening, Sybil fraud is where a single bad actor spins up, thousands of fake, cheap identities to overwhelm a network or drain a resource. It's a massive threat if agents can just act autonomously.
Oh, absolutely.
And the cool thing about Trace is it isn't analyzing the language the agent uses. It's analyzing the behavioral patterns of the requests to mathematically deduce if, one human is actually pulling the strings behind 1,000 different agent masks.
Yeah, and then you have TeamGate, which is
Yeah.
positioning itself as the Cloudflare for autonomous agents.
Oh, right, TeamGate.
Yeah. So Cloudflare acts as a reverse proxy for the traditional web, right?
Right.
It stands between a user and a server to filter out malicious traffic.
Sure.
TeamGate is attempting to build that exact same proxy layer, but for machine-to-machine interactions. It actually forces the incoming agent to prove its intent and its authorization before its request is ever allowed to even touch the core database, let alone trigger a payment function.
Wow. And we also saw a tool called Wizard, right? This was described as a self-extending autonomous agent built in a single Rust binary.
Yeah. Single binary, yeah.
Which means the agent carries its entire execution environment within itself. So it's incredibly portable. You can drop it into almost any operating system. You don't have to worry about external dependencies.
Right.
But from a security standpoint, a self-contained agent that can modify its own code, that is a walking liability if it doesn't have strict boundaries hard-coded into its environment.
Which ties directly into Zalgorix, that autonomous AI pen testing agent we found in the data.
Oh, yeah, the pen testing one.
Yeah, pen testing meaning the agent is designed to actively hunt for vulnerabilities in network defenses.
Right.
You unleash it to find the holes in your security before a malicious hacker does.
Right.
But if an autonomous pen tester isn't severely restricted in what systems it's allowed to touch or how deep it's allowed to pivot into a network,
It basically becomes malware.
it stops being a security tool and essentially becomes a destructive worm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
So the developer focus across all these Hacker News projects, it's entirely on guardrails.
Right. But what we did not find on Hacker News were any actual numeric adoption trends for agents using Bitcoin or the Lightning Network.
None.
Yeah. The only significant cluster that surfaced in the search was this article about the company Bull Bitcoin. They were challenging the EU's DDC8 rules in a French court.
Right, the regulatory stuff.
Yeah. DSC8 is the European Union's directive on administrative cooperation. It basically requires crypto companies to report user holdings to tax authorities to prevent evasion, which is a massive regulatory hurdle for human-run exchanges.
But the data showed absolutely zero crossover between AI agents and DC8 compliance.
Right.
The total lack of adoption metrics or regulatory discussions regarding agents using Lightning, it just proves that the current landscape is still entirely experimental.
Yeah, definitely.
So the hard question you should be asking when you see one of those viral demos isn't, can the software move money?
What should we be asking?
The hard question is, what exactly was this software allowed to do? And what evidence proves it stayed inside its boundary?
Okay, so setting a strict boundary requires defining what authority actually looks like for a machine. And the brief breaks this down into 3 strict prerequisites, right?
Yes, 3 of them.
So the first is continuity. In a massive digital network, just having abstract identity isn't enough. The system needs to cryptographically verify exactly which specific agent instance is acting.
Under which specific human operator.
Right, for which distinct task. If the system loses the threat of continuity, accountability just evaporates entirely.
Absolutely. And then the second prerequisite is bounded scope. Because giving a vague prompt, like asking an AI to act within company policy, that is a catastrophic failure point when actual funds are on the line.
Oh, for sure.
Capabilities have to define the exact action allowed,
Yeah.
the specific target resource, and the hard constraints, like maximum spend limits or automated circuit breakers that cut off access the moment a threshold is crossed.
And then the third prerequisite is revocation. Permissions must expire.
Oh.
I mean, think about hiring a general contractor to remodel your kitchen. You don't just hand a stranger your main checking account routing number and ask them to make the house look nice.
Right, that would be insane.
You give them a specific budget for a specific room with a strict timeline. And crucially, you sign a contract that allows you to fire them and instantly revoke their physical access to your property if they start, tearing down the wrong wall.
Exactly. Giving an unverified agent a permanent digital lease just creates a permanent security hole.
Yeah.
Expanding the wallet balance of an agent that lacks a revocable bounded scope, it merely increases the blast radius when something eventually goes wrong.
But okay, wait, let me challenge the mechanics of that revocation for a second.
Sure.
If we are talking about utilizing decentralized rails or smart contracts to manage these agent economies, how do you actually revoke a permission? Because the entire value proposition of a blockchain is immutability.
Right.
Once a smart contract is deployed and an agent has the cryptographic key, you can't just call customer service to pause the account.
No, you can't. And that's why the authority layer must exist entirely independently of the base settlement layer.
Okay, how does that work?
You aren't altering the immutable blockchain itself. You're architecting off-chain circuit breakers or utilizing proxy smart contracts.
Ah, proxy contracts.
Right. The agent doesn't hold the ultimate master key to the funds. It holds a time-locked, mathematically restricted lease to a signing key.
Oh, I see.
So when the human operator hits the kill switch, the proxy contract invalidates the agent's specific lease. The agent can still try to execute a transaction on the blockchain, but the network will reject it.
Because the signature doesn't match anymore.
Exactly. The temporary cryptographic signature is no longer recognized as valid by the multi-signature vault that holds the actual funds.
That makes a lot of sense. But setting a boundary is completely useless if the system can't mathematically prove the agent stayed inside it, right? If an agent goes rogue, how do you verify it crossed the line without just, taking its word for it?
This is a huge point. The internal brief introduces this really crucial distinction between a transcript and a receipt.
Okay.
A transcript is just a narrative. It's simply what the agent claims it did. And language models, they're designed to be helpful and fluent.
Oh, yeah, they're great talkers.
Right. which means they can produce a highly detailed, grammatically perfect summary of a massive systemic failure, cheerfully hiding the fact that they just completely emptied your account.
Wow. So a transcript is basically a witness statement. And a witness can be mistaken, biased, or just completely fabricating the story, no matter how confident they sound on the stand.
Precisely.
But a receipt, in the context of machine economies, that's DNA evidence.
Yes.
It's a mathematical proof that can be independently retested by anyone to verify the exact reality of the event.
To enforce these boundaries, the system relies on the mechanics of proof. It requires a pre-commitment.
Okay, what does that mean?
So before the payment is ever initiated, the system records the intended action. What is the specific task? What's the target? What is the absolute spend limit? And who authorized this session?
Right, getting it all in writing, basically. And then after the action is executed, the system has to record the actual effect.
Yes.
What was the tangible change in the state of the software? What was the exact final cost? Which cryptographic identifiers were utilized? And were there any deviations whatsoever from the original pre-commitment?
And this is where the underlying philosophy of Bitcoin becomes highly relevant to the conversation.
Even without the numeric adoption data we were looking for earlier.
Exactly, even without that data.
Yeah.
The utility here is the architecture. It's cheap verification, explicit authorization, and reproducible state transitions. It's a system built from the ground up so that you never have to trust a single narrator.
But here's the thing, though. These language models are becoming exponentially more sophisticated at reasoning and coding. Right?
Wow.
So if an advanced agent completely understands the mathematical parameters required by the receipt system, what stops it from simply fabricating the cryptographic proof itself? Like, it could buy a $5,000 first-class plane ticket and generate a flawless fake receipt showing a $500 economy purchase just to satisfy the system's guardrails.
That's a great question. The system avoids being tricked by completely ignoring the agent's output narrative. The verification relies entirely on recomputability.
Recomputability.
Right. A second operator, whether that's a human auditor or an arbiter AI, they take the raw underlying state data and independently recompute the cryptographic hashes.
Okay, so they don't just look at the receipt the agent hands them.
No, the second observer doesn't trust the math the first agent handed over. It performs the math itself.
Wow, okay.
If the recomputed hash of the actual network state doesn't perfectly match the hash of the pre-authorized intent, the settlement instantly fails. Evidence must precede settlement, and that evidence must be independently verifiable.
Right. But even with mathematically perfect receipts, transactions in the real world do not happen in a vacuum. Time passes, software reboots, humans have to step in and alter the parameters.
Yeah, things get messy.
Exactly. And the next major bottleneck highlighted in the brief is the danger of handoffs in supervision.
Because autonomy routinely falls apart at the seams of a handoff. An agent might function flawlessly inside a single, uninterrupted context window.
Sure.
But the danger arises when that session is disrupted. If an agent has to restart due to a server error or pass its task to a different specialized model, the system has to guarantee that the next iteration perfectly recovers the objective, the constraints, the stop conditions, and the unresolved risks.
And the brief actually refers to the failure of this recovery as context drift, which is just an incredible financial liability.
Context drift means the agent loses the threat of its own restrictions.
Right.
During a restart, an agent might accidentally repeat a Lightning payment it already executed because the receipt didn't load into its new context window.
Oh, wow.
Or it might widen its own permission boundary because it forgot the original constraint set by the human. Or it might settle a task and finalize a payment to a vendor for work that was never actually completed, simply because it lost access to the verification logs during the handoff.
I mean, think about the shift changes at a hospital. A nurse cares for a patient for 12 hours. They know the exact medication schedule, the vital sign trends, the doctor's specific verbal orders.
Yeah.
When that shift ends, if the first nurse's charting, which is essentially their context and their receipts, if that isn't perfectly transparent, mathematically accurate, and easily understandable to the incoming nurse, the patient might get double dosed.
Exactly.
In an autonomous machine economy, a double dose translates directly to double spending your money.
It's a perfect analogy. If the new agent picking up the task does not receive a cryptographically sound handover of the exact state of the world, it will make critical errors. And this dictates how we have to design the supervision surface for these systems. A useful dashboard cannot merely display a green check mark indicating task completed.
Right. It has to expose the messy reality of the operation. It needs to log the escalations. It must show exactly when the AI refused to take an action because a hard-coded circuit breaker was tripped.
Yes.
It has to explicitly highlight the moments a human had to take over.
Yeah.
You are auditing the failure states and the boundary collisions, not just celebrating the successful demos.
And the pragmatic takeaway from the sources for developers and operators is brutally simple.
What is it?
You must start much smaller than the viral demos suggest. Do not provide an agent with an open-ended wallet and a vague open-ended instruction. Give the agent exactly one highly defined task, give it a maximum limit of $5, assign it one specific counterparty it is authorized to transact with, and give it a 1-hour time limit with a hard, clean stop condition.
So you lock it in a tiny, highly restricted sandbox.
Yes.
And you don't just sit back and watch it succeed. The mandate is to actively test the ugly cases.
You must intentionally break the session. Test what happens when you restart the agent milliseconds before it executes a payment.
Oh, that's stressful.
Test what happens when you force a context handoff to another operator right in the middle of a complex negotiation. Pull the plug and revoke its permission mid-flight. Ghost the counterparty entirely.
Just see what breaks.
Exactly. If the architecture you've built cannot handle those ugly cases cleanly, if it cannot roll back the state of the transaction and produce a recomputable receipt of the exact failure, the agent fundamentally does not deserve a larger financial balance.
Agent economies do not begin the moment a developer hands a machine a crypto wallet. They begin when authority is explicit, when scopes are tightly bounded, when permissions are instantly revocable, and when every single microscopic action is backed by recomputable DNA evidence.
And the sources leave us with a very direct question to consider based on this framework.
Yeah, think about this for a second. What would you require an AI agent to prove before you let it spend even 5 cents of your own money?
Right.
Would you require it to mathematically prove its identity, its exact scope of authority? Would you demand a recomputable receipt? The verified, independent outcome of the real-world action? Or all four?
And if we accept that strict, cryptographically verified receipts and bounded scopes are the absolute baseline for a functioning machine economy, we have to consider what happens when this scales.
What do you mean?
Imagine two autonomous agents, both acting as financial fiduciaries for two different human beings, and both operating under flawless, strict circuit breakers. What happens when they fundamentally disagree on the validity of a cryptographic receipt?
Oh, wow.
Agent A computes the state transition and declares the proof of service is invalid. Agent B recomputes the exact same data and insists it perfectly matches the pre-authorized intent.
That's a total deadlock.
Exactly. When those hard-coded scopes inevitably clash, how is the stalemate resolved? It points to the necessary creation of an entirely new digital infrastructure, AI small claims courts.
AI small claims courts.
Yes, we are looking at the imminent rise of highly specialized arbiter agents whose entire bounded scope is dedicated solely to resolving machine-to-machine payment disputes by independently verifying the cryptographic receipts of other models.
That is wild. But it makes perfect sense. I mean, you cannot build a functional economy without a scalable mechanism for dispute resolution. You can hand the toddler the credit card all day long to watch the payment rail light up.
Yeah.
But until you have an architecture for hard limits, recomputable receipts, and an automated small claims court to handle it when they inevitably try to buy out the entire candy store, well, you don't have an economy.
Yeah, you know.
You just have a very expensive, very fragile demo. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.